Quick shout out before we get started to Mick Williams. Mick left us a review in iTunes which said, "Great podcast, very informative. Would highly recommend for any tradie/business owner wanting the best for their business." Thank you very much, Mick, from Mick Williams Plastering in Sydney. That's fantastic. And it's on iTunes too, which helps boost our ratings. So thank you very much. And likewise, there's another iTunes rating here from Tony Richardson. And Tony said, Matt does a fantastic job. He obviously works very hard to find and interview a wide range of interesting guests. Very useful for tradies and contractors at any stage of their business. On ya, Matt. So no guessing where Tony is from. Thanks, Tony. Much appreciated. Once again, folks, if you've got any reviews you'd like to leave us on iTunes, please do so. It does help our ratings and it does help the show get promoted. And on that note, after 18 weeks of the show being live, we are still being featured in the iTunes New and Noteworthy category, which is a massive deal. So I want to say thank you very much to everyone that has helped us get there. And thank you for all of your downloads and subscribes. It's been fantastic. As it cools down here in the Southern Hemisphere, Facebook starts filling up with people complaining religiously about how cold it is and just whinging that they want to be out there sunbathing and they can't wait for summer to come back around. However, there is a handful of people, just like myself, that absolutely love when winter comes around because it means we get to go skiing. So with that in mind, this year in August, I am taking a group of business owners from trade backgrounds across to Wanaka in New Zealand, and we're running the first ever Learn and Ski program, which is a program we put together to basically help people, business owners, tradies, whoever, people that want to get away and go down to the snow, but they sometimes struggle justifying that time and that cost. So what we're doing is we're running this program, which is a complete tax deduction. It is a workshop in the afternoon. We're skiing in the mornings, and we go into a workshop, and then we get to hang out and socialize in the evening. So it's going to be a really cool program, and we cannot wait for it to come around. It cannot come soon enough. So if that interests you, head across to thesiteshed.com/events where you'll be able to find a link to that. Anyway, it'll be a load of fun, so I hope you can join us.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello and welcome to Toolbox Talks. My name is Matt Jones, and thank you once again, listeners, for sharing your earbuds with me on the Site Shed podcast. And today we are speaking about the future of lighting. In fact, this episode is called Intelligent Lighting, and I have with me Greg Jones from Outdoor Illumination on the line. How are you, Greg?
Fantastic, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So a bit of background, Greg and I met at a networking event in Sydney. That's on my doorstep right here, Sydney, Australia. And I popped over and saw Greg recently in sunny Toronto, Ontario in Canada. And we had a bit of a catch up there. And Greg has a very interesting product and a very interesting angle on, I suppose, what I like to look at as the evolution of an existing product. And for that reason, I wanted to get Greg on the show because I see a massive future in what Greg specializes in. And I would love to spread the word a little bit more to people out there that could potentially, A, adopt, I suppose, the technology that Greg preaches, and B, I suppose, just get exposure to a different way of doing things. As most of you know, I am a bit of a greenie, and anything that can add value to the environment in one way or another, I'm all over, especially when it comes back to trade-related services, tools, techniques, etc., that a lot of you guys out there that are listening can actually apply to your own business. And you probably would apply it to your business if only you knew that it existed. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about specifically LED lighting. And we've all heard of LED lighting. It's the little funny colored buttons that show up on your digital display on your amplifier. But it's a lot more than that. Isn't that right, Greg?
Absolutely. Yeah, lighting is LED lighting is taking a whole new direction for the whole industry. It's turning it upside down, really.
So we're going to cover off on, I am a complete novice in this area, so you're going to have to bear with my lack of general understanding when we're talking about, but I imagine a lot of my listeners out there are in a similar boat. I suppose what I really want to talk about is at the end of the day, the future of LED lighting and the validity of what we're talking about from an installation point of view, a lot of our listeners out there are sparkies, electricians, and a lot of our listeners out there are builders. And I imagine that one of the main reasons that they may not be using some of these technologies, Greg, is because they just don't know they exist. And furthermore, they don't know, maybe a lot of the stuff around the qualifications or the compliance that's involved with installation and that kind of thing. So thank you very much for joining us on this podcast, because without you, I certainly wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I can shed a little light on it.
So let's talk a little bit, I suppose, about the current state of lighting.
Okay. Well, just to give you a bit of a scope on sort of where it's at around the world right now, they estimate that there's about 44 billion lamp sockets out there, and only about 5% right now are LED. So the market is absolutely huge. There's less than 10% of the existing lighting around the globe right now is LED. By 2020, they're saying it'll be like 33%. By 2030, up to 75%. So
wow.
The opportunity to get involved in this is absolutely enormous.
So why is there this surge in LED lighting? Like, what are we talking about here? Is it a cost saving from an installation? Is it a longevity of product saving? Is it an environmental advantage? Like, what are we talking about here?
It's all of those, Matt. Really, it's number one is the cost savings. That's what drives everything. Typically, an LED fixture, particularly in the outdoor lighting, which is where I specialize, you're looking at a very minimum of 75% in cost savings right out of the gate.
Are we talking from a power consumption there, Greg, or are we talking from installation or replacement?
Power consumption.
Wow.
In other words, your hydro bill. Your hydro bill will instantly drop 75% using LED lighting compared to traditional outdoor lighting right now, such as metal halides and high-pressure sodium.
That is unbelievable. 75%. Wow.
Put on lighting controls such as daylight harvesting and occupancy sensors. You can drive that down closer to 90%, believe it or not.
Good grief. Okay, well, let's wrap this podcast up now. Anyone wants to get in touch with you?
Yeah.
That's
There's
amazing.
also the environmental aspect. There's no mercury. So you don't have as much hazardous product. How long does it last? It's most warranties now from quality manufacturers like national brand manufacturers. You can get 100,000 up to 200,000 hours with a 10-year warranty. So your installation cost.
In comparison, how long would a normal globe last?
Okay, so in a traditional street light fixture, for example, there might be 30,000 hours. And so if you figure there's 8,740 hours in a year, if you have 200,000 hours, that's just, you're just not going back up there.
That's amazing. So that is huge. That's 7 times as the lifespan. Okay.
That's right. And LEDs are dropping. Commercial high bay lighting, for example, is dropping about 12% over the last year. In the interior office areas, one of the most common fixtures, they call it a troffer, which is like a 2x4 ceiling fixture you'd find in most offices in those ceiling tiles. Those are dropping about 33% over the last short period, and they're expected to be a dominant part of the market in no time at all. So it's definitely worth pursuing LED lighting if you're in this trade at all.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I suppose we're going to dive a little bit more into the reality of getting from an installer's point of view, actually finding out how we can get into this, because as you say, this is a huge market and there's going to be a massive future in it. When we're talking, I suppose what I'd like to know is obviously when we're communicating to the marketplace. Like, I mean, this is a relatively new, I guess, in LED lighting is relatively new in the arena that we're talking here. Is it a big educational, I suppose, process? Firstly, educating, the end consumer, which is mums and dads, homeowners, businesses, whatever.
Right.
And then I suppose there's also going to be another huge education process where you've got to go out, you've actually got to start teaching and educating the people that are going to be installing it.
Well, to be honest, the education part from the commercial side was a lot tougher years ago when we were selling energy efficient fluorescent lighting like T5s and T8s. Now LEDs are becoming so common, and people have become to accept the fact that these things offer incredible savings. So it's not such a hard struggle anymore.
Right.
Although the greatest challenge really is a lot of companies, they keep hearing these crazy offers and amazing savings, and they start to question whether it's valid. So there's a bit of a, some call it funny math. Is this really realistic? So there is that aspect of it where there is some skepticism, but it's gradually going away.
Let's be honest; it does sound almost too good to be true. Like
yeah,
when you go to a customer, you say, "Listen, we can save you 70 to 90% on your current hydro or your current electricity bill." Like that, I imagine that would blow a lot of people out of the water.
Absolutely, and one of the ways that for the true skeptics that we can get around that, and your electricians, your Sparkies can do the same thing, of course, is we can actually meter the existing load on the fixtures. So you can very easily nowadays hook up a meter to the panel or out on the fixture itself. If it's like a pole light, you can open up the little access panel on the pole light and wrap a meter around the wires, and it'll actually measure the load of that. So that if somebody's skeptical, you can say, okay, here is exactly what that load is. And then go up and provide a demo fixture, and then back to the meter, and you go, boom, there it is. Like it's totally indisputable at that time.
Oh, this is brilliant. So it's really a case of don't tell me, show me. You can go in there and you can actually give a case study and say, well, listen, you can argue all you want, you cannot believe me, but here are the figures, these are the facts. Do what you want with it.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. No, it is tough to believe for a lot of people, and and I think that is one of the hurdles, but. Again, there's a way around it for sure if you are prepared to do that.
So, Greg, your area of expertise, I suppose, with outdoor illumination is outdoor. You're talking, car parks and things like that. Is that correct?
Well, I've been in the indoor commercial lighting longer than the outdoor, but I'm now wanting to specialize more in the outdoor. So I've really begun to focus on that because I see a great opportunity in a lot of companies have already done their plants, and now they're starting to look at what else can they do. Okay. And the outdoors is a great extension.
So I suppose not necessarily relative to outdoor, but just in general, if we're talking about, okay, this is cool. You've sold me. I can save 70% on my electricity bill here through my lighting. What's the process in, I suppose, doing the changeover? Like, do I have to go and pull the lights out of the ground and reinstall everything, or is it a simple changeover, or how does it all work?
Sure. Well, if you're let's go inside in the commercial side for a second. Typically what you're doing is if the company has a metal halide, those traditional round globe type, you're taking that off the ceiling and you're just replacing it with an LED. So it takes an installer about, let's say 30 minutes at the most. I mean, our guys can do, some of the retail stores we go into, some of our crews will get 100, 120 fixtures done in a week, no problem.
Wow.
So it's no different than putting up. It's no different than putting up a traditional fixture. It's just a fixture. So there's nothing scary or funny about LEDs. In fact, now what's happened in the technology is that the current LED tubes that essentially look like a T8 or a fluorescent linear tube, those 4-foot tubes.
Yeah.
If they have a T8 technology now, which is the most common, you can now just replace the tubes with LEDs without even changing the electronics anymore.
So when you say the electronics, we're talking about the transformers and the stuff that typically goes along with a fluorescent?
Yeah, we call it electronic ballast.
Right.
It's a little rectangular box up in there, and it's what provides the juice to the bulb.
Okay, so you don't need to replace that anymore.
If it's an electronic ballast from a T8, a decent quality one, then you literally don't even have to do that. But a lot of the times, if we're doing an interior commercial office building, and those fixtures have been up there for a number of years, the ballast life is only so long. So it's at that point, it's worth it to simply switch out the ballast and the lamps at the same time so that you're starting fresh with the whole kit.
Okay.
And then some manufacturers such as Philips, they'll actually give you an extended warranty period beyond the traditional, say, 5 years. If you match their ballast and lamps together, they give you a bonus and give you a 6-year warranty.
So I know in I know in Canada the government's pretty good on backing, projects like this that have these big environmental impacts. And like, what are there rebates associated? Like, how does it work? I mean, obviously you can only speak from Canada, but I mean, I'm sure we have something similar over here. I'd have to go check that out. But what's the go on that front?
Sure. Yeah. So what we've got here is it's called the Save on Energy program, and they'll contribute up to 50% of a project cost. And they have different tracks, whether it's what they call a prescriptive or engineered, but don't need to get into that as part of it. But either way, let's just say that typically you're going to get a government rebate somewhere between 20 and 30% typically on an outdoor project, and it can get higher than that. You can actually get up towards the 50% on some of the indoor projects. Well, I was going to say a lot of that. If you get into the engineered type of savings programs, it depends on your operating hours, because you're only going to save money on any lighting when your lights are on. When they're off, they're off. So if you're getting paid, if you're getting an incentive based on saving energy, then if the more your lights are on, the greater your incentive under some of the tracks, which we call engineered. A prescriptive track is simply, if you have fixture A, you get this amount of money, and fixture B, we get this amount of money. So we have those two scenarios right now.
This is really cool, though, isn't it? Because what you've effectively got there is like a strategic partner within your government.
Right.
I mean, you can't get...
Yeah, and we could always use the line to the customer that, at the very least, with the fluorescence even, you're going to save 50% on your hydro cost, and the government will pay up to 50%. So it's really a no-brainer. And now with LEDs, you're saving far greater than that. Just to give you an example of a real-world installation we just did on one of our last projects for a food industry. They had the traditional metal halide lamps in their food processing plant, and they had a fairly low ceilings, and they had the 458 watt metal halides, and we replaced them with 80 watts in an LED.
Wow. From 450 down to 80.
Yeah. Isn't that something?
That's amazing. And the same light output?
No, it isn't actually. We did measurements with our light meters, and before we went in, they were 26-foot candles, and when we finished, they were 35.
Oh, it was brighter?
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
That's amazing.
Yeah. And what's part of the fascinating part about LEDs is that what's the future hold? Well, they just keep getting more and more efficient. You're getting more. It's called lumens per watt. And so what that means is, like, for the amount of power you put into this thing, how much light you get out of it. And they measure that as how many lumens come out for every watt of power. So right now, let's just say generally you're around 120 lumens per watt. And the government has already put it out there that by 2020, they want to see closer to 250 lumens per watt. So now that 80 watt example I gave you, that means we'll be doing it one day with like 40.
Wow.
I mean, that's just mind blowing.
I wonder if Thomas Edison is sitting up in heaven listening to this podcast going, "No way, Greg, you're kidding."
Well, trust me, I'm not the engineer behind this. I'm just telling you what to...
That is phenomenal. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose, there's no reason really I can see why you wouldn't be looking towards that. Are there limitations on LED lighting? Like, where would you not use LED lighting as a lighting solution?
Well, the technology keeps getting better and better where those type of areas are being eliminated. Like it used to be, you wouldn't use them in an art gallery or something like that. But now they are safe around artwork, and they are providing the right color to make food look great in the meat counters and stuff. But those used to be areas that were a challenge. But now, they're better than traditional lighting in colder environments. Their biggest challenge right now is when you get into the really high-powered ones, like in, say, football stadiums, where you've got those massive 1,000-watt fixtures. But LEDs, they're now there. It's just they're still pretty costly. But
that was a question I was going to ask you actually in relation to. You kind of touched on it just then, but the different types of lighting. Like I know you've got typically your yellow lighting, your white light, and all these different types of light that appeal to different sort of, I suppose, depending on if you're filming or taking photos or that kind of stuff. Are you saying LED now kind of can go across the board and meet whatever requirement you need in that regard?
It can do even more than what you're envisioning there. What you're talking about is that when they talk about the color of light, it's called the Kelvin. And in an office environment, for example, it's around 4,000 Kelvin, they call it. And then if you were to say in a nice restaurant or something, it would get down to around 2,800. In a factory where you want very natural looking light that, if you're in the printing industry or just quality control, you want things to look as natural as possible. And then people use 5,000 Kelvin. Now, with LEDs, the way they're going is that they're now adjustable so that you can have that same fixture. You're not having to buy one color. You're actually able to adjust the color of them to match the environment and the time of day. And it's to the point now they call it human-centric lighting, where there's a school in Iowa, I think it is, that is the first one experimenting with this, but the lights actually change throughout the day in accordance to what our bodies would naturally want it sort of to be and sync with the day, so that it might start off brighter and during the day it might start to taper down and such. So it actually just adjusts along with your body's sort of needs.
Jesus. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's quite something, isn't it?
what is LED? Like, what is it? A gas?
No, it's a circuit. It's actually a SSL, the solid state lighting is what an LED is. It's SSL, solid state lighting. It's actually just a little small chip, and it's like a circuit, and they're made out of wafers and all this kind of technology stuff that's beyond my scope. But
Yeah.
and then they put this yellowish phosphorus on it, and that's what actually produces the white light that you're seeing from an LED. If you actually look at the little chips themselves, you often see a yellowish color to it, and that is a phosphorus that is used to create the white light.
Wow.
Because white is actually the toughest light color for LEDs.
Right. Yeah. I think you mentioned that actually when we met last time. That's surprising. You'd think that would be the easiest.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's like blues and reds and stuff that are the easiest. But
Greg, when I was traveling over in Sweden a couple of years ago, I know I was in Stockholm and there was a bar there that was a UV bar. And in Stockholm through the winter, they don't have much sunlight. And because they don't have much sunlight, there's a huge rate of depression related to a vitamin D deficiency. And this bar actually was more of a cafe. It wasn't like a booze. Well, it might have been a boozy bar. I can't remember. If I can't remember, it probably was a boozy bar.
yeah,
But it basically, they had lighting in there which omitted vitamin D through UV. Would that have been an LED technology?
well, LEDs actually don't emit UV, which is one of the bonuses. That's what a lot of health and safety is a big issue with companies, and that's a real bonus for LEDs is they don't do that. So I don't know what they're doing there, and I would have to think it not, but
Yeah, okay.
I really wouldn't want to say. I've never heard of that one yet, but I do know that they do make LED skylights that actually look like you're looking up at a skylight, and they've tested that out with people where they've looked up and you can even see the clouds moving and everything, and they're just assuming that's a skylight and they're actually in the basement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? You know, how much your mind comes into play with things like that. You know, if you're looking out of a window that gives you the impression that it's emitting sunlight. Like what's the word I'm looking for? What do they call that? If it's an
illusion?
No, like it'll come to me in a minute.
Sure.
Anyway, moving along. So obviously, this can be installed domestically. You can install it in your house, you can install it in your office, commercially, whatever. Who is licensed to install it? I mean, I know obviously you're in Canada, but typically in Canada, what's the rule there?
Sure. Well, I mean, if you're installing just new LED lamps, then anybody can do it. Whether you're a consumer or just your maintenance guy in the company. You really only have to be a licensed electrician when you're getting involved in the ballast end of it, the electronic drivers. So then you're fiddling around with the wires. But so up until the socket, so to speak, anybody can do it. But after that, you just have to be basically a licensed electrician. And then if it's an outdoor, there's certain regulations, whether it's, 2 men in a bucket, that kind of thing. But
yeah.
Otherwise, it's really no different than any other lighting.
Do they now teach this stuff in colleges and, when you're going through your apprenticeship, do they teach you LED lighting as an electrician?
Yes, I believe that's part of the curriculum now, yes.
Okay, cool. So where are you? I suppose we're sort of getting towards the end of this podcast now, but where do you see the future of LED lighting?
Well, they're saying that the next two biggies in lighting are connectivity and intelligent lighting. So that's the next big frontier for lighting. Right now, it's come on board. It's naturally saving everybody all this wonderful money, but where it's actually going is really the most fascinating thing. For example, there's a few things I could quickly touch on, and one of them is called visible light communications. And now what's happening is that your actual LED lighting is able to emit data. It can do data transfers. So that's actually opened up what they call Li-Fi, which is going to probably be a strong contender to Wi-Fi connections. And that's all done through your LED lighting. Your eye can't see the flickering communication. It's impossible to see to the naked eye, but it's able to communicate to your iPhones. So it's going to be fascinating to see all that kind of stuff coming down.
So this is really cool. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit further, because when we sat down and you were telling me about this over lunch, I was blown away. I'd never heard of it. So what you're effectively saying is you're going to be able, or they're going to be able to emit a like almost is it a Wi-Fi signal? Is that what we're talking here? But
yes, it is. It's actually it's called Li-Fi instead of Wi-Fi, but it's they're saying that it's 100 times faster than Wi-Fi, and it's right now reaching speeds of 224 gigabytes per second. Don't ask me what that really means in the world, but apparently that's massive compared to what we have now. But one of the bonuses is that it with Li-Fi, it doesn't penetrate the walls. It's let's just say you're in your office and Li-Fi signals coming from your LED lighting in your office. So you're safe and secure within your office or within the company's four walls, so to speak. Unlike Wi-Fi, that is a ton of security issues, right? So that's very exciting for a lot of companies and a lot of industries, and they're projecting the growth of Li-Fi at 82% between 2013 and 2018.
2013, 3 years ago,
to 2018.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So what we're basically saying is you can, if you were in a corporate office or something, for example, basically the Wi-Fi would be transmitted through the light. So wherever the light is hitting, you'll have Wi-Fi, and as soon as you walk out of that or you leave that area, then the Wi-Fi ends.
That's right. Well, yeah, but I mean, it can be throughout your whole company. It's not like if you left your office that you suddenly lost it.
No, of course. But I mean, whereas at the moment you've got like a transmitter that would then send that signal out to wherever you are. Now you're now, and that's a security risk, because you'll be walking past the street and this Wi-Fi signal could pop up, and if it's not secured, then you can just jump on it and be using someone else's Wi-Fi. Whereas now,
right,
you're basically confined to within the boundaries of the walls of your organization.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I've heard that even airlines will one day be able to get a signal from the lighting in the airplane.
Interesting you say that. I was just listening to a podcast this morning, and they were saying that there are many airlines that are doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
well, there you go.
They were dispelling the myth of you have to have your phone on turned off when you're on a flight. They reckon that's a load of garbage.
Right. And even on the connectivity on the outdoor side, the outdoor pole lighting, as you're going down the highway, those will be emitting signals. Right now in California, they're pretty advanced in the outdoor world of lighting. They even have a thing called Title 24, which mandates certain controls be in place in all their new construction. But even their outdoor lighting poles can communicate. They can even tell if there's been gunshots. They can monitor the traffic. They can provide a Wi-Fi signal to cell phones. It's just unbelievable. So in essence, lighting right now is lighting, but what's it going to be? It's going to become sort of an essential part of the communication world. It's just going to be unbelievable.
So with, I suppose, the reduction of running costs and power consumption, that comes as a result of, making that transition to an LED lighting solution, is that going to open up lots of windows in the space of what can run those lights? So, I mean, I know in Australia here, we have an abundance of sunlight. Is LED lighting going to potentially be able to be run by sunlight, solar?
It already does. It's been proven. There's actually some great YouTube videos on this, but Where it's really exciting is in third world countries where they don't have the infrastructure right now, and they've demonstrated on how a solar panel can act as daylight harvesting, obviously for energy, but can also transmit data. So then it's actually providing signals into the to the smartphones and serving as a source of energy. So it's quite fascinating.
Is this going to upset the conglomerates? The big power companies? Are they going to? I mean, I imagine the man's going to want to have control over this in some way or another, or even maybe governments. Like, are they going to be losing money on potential tax resources?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, the more you can open up the education and opportunities in remote areas of your country, that only has positive impacts at the end of the day.
Because I've been following, trying to follow closely, the increasing demand for people wanting to live off the grid in urban areas. So, disconnecting from power supply and running off solar grids and that sort of thing, water harvesting and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, I imagine there's going to be a huge movement. I mean, I know now even with when you look at battery-powered homes, like Tesla has now come out with this product that enables you to, run your entire home off a battery pack, which is also charged through solar.
Right.
I imagine this would all work very well in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, for sure. In the outdoor lighting, for example, solar-powered outdoor lights are cost-effective solutions where there is no infrastructure right now. In other words, they can't be competitively priced to a lighting grid that's already got existing wires. There's no point in going off the grid with solar. But if you had to install that lighting grid underground and bury all the cables and all that wonderful stuff, then solar power does beat that lighting in terms of a cost savings.
Wow. It's an interesting space, isn't it? I'm looking forward to seeing the progression of where this goes. I think it's very cool.
Yeah. And, for some of your guys out there in this industry, a couple of the things that I found to be sort of impressive in getting customers on board, we recently just launched our drone auditing for buildings, where the drone actually buzzes around the building and counts the fixtures. And you put that up on YouTube, and it first of all does a little pan over the company's name and an overview of the building. And, that kind of stuff can separate you from the competition for, in our case, it was $199, pretty
Wow.
tough to beat. Yeah.
So you actually, you send the drone up and you're counting, what are you counting? The lights?
Yep, exactly. Not only that, it also gives you the fixture height, which helps in designing the lights, because you want to know how tall the fixtures are to know how much power to put to them.
That is so cool.
You can also get close enough to see if there's any potential, challenges in terms of installation, whether it's like old crappy brackets or whatever. So it's pretty cool. And, it's things like that. When we do an indoor audit, for example, now, I've got an iPod hooked up to a meter on wheels that records light levels. So if you're showing somebody your before and after, you can go down the same aisles, and that kind of thing separates you from a lot of the others. So it's doing things like that, understanding the industry, understanding where technology is going, so you can be a bit of an advisor to companies. That'll help your guys in terms of securing the business.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's going to be a lot of people out there, a lot of Sparkies especially, that are listening to this, and hopefully builders as well, that are going to want to find out a lot more information in this space. So your website, outdoorlumination.com, has a lot of cool resource on it. And you've actually also offered a guide, which is basically six tip guide to LED lighting, which we'll post a link to in the show notes of this podcast. So make sure, listeners, that you go and check out both those resources. Look, Greg, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode. You've done an amazing job of explaining something that I had absolutely no idea about. So thank you for your expertise.
My pleasure, Matt. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and as I say, listeners, there'll be all the links to Greg, and you can get in contact with him through the links on the show notes. So I encourage you very much to do so. Get in his space. And you wrote a book too, didn't you, Greg?
I did, yes.
What was the book called?
And it was called Bright Ideas, and it was it tries to be more of a jargon-free book for lighting because a lot of people get bamboozled by all the jargon in outdoor lighting, indoor lighting. So I always try to approach it for more of a easily consumable language.
Okay, cool. And that book, is that available through the website, or is that through is it an ebook or?
I think there's a link. If there isn't, if somebody just drop me an email, I'd be happy to send it along.
Okay, fantastic. Well, there you go, folks. If you want to find out more, there's a book available too. So we'll post a link to that in the show notes also. So look, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Greg?
I think we've covered quite a bit there.
Yeah, you happy with that?
I'm happy.
All right, cool. Well, listeners, that is a wrap. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, leave us some notes in the show notes or on iTunes, Stitcher, and or SoundCloud. Thank you. So if you haven't already, head across to thesiteshed.com and register for our Toolbox Talks, where you'll be regularly sent great episodes just like this straight to your inbox, so you'll never miss one. If you want to join the community, you can head across to thesiteshed.com/members, where for a small monthly fee, you'll get access to regularly updated training material, as well as access to our forum, where you can mingle and collaborate with trade-based business owners just like you from all over the world. If you're enjoying this podcast, please head across to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it, and it helps us spread the word and reach the masses. Likewise, if you know anyone that might benefit from the content we create, then please go ahead and share this with them.
You've been listening to Toolbox Talks by The Site Shed. For more great content just like this, head across to thesiteshed.com and join the amazing community of savvy trade-based business owners.